Because you're magic people to me. You're magic people to me. Hold your head up high, let your voices fly. I'm proud to be Māori.
Tēnā tātou. Welcome back to the podcast, E Te Whānau, and oh man, I'm looking forward to this one actually. And we have the sister, Tania Carr, here on the show with us today, and welcome.
Kia ora.
Wow, what a buzz, eh?
I know.
We've been just talking and there's been so much good energy, and just feel so grateful to have connected with you earlier this year. And just the things that you've created, the person that you are, the journey that you've had, the story that you have to share is just so awesome just to be around you and in your energy. And so I'm very grateful to have you on the show today, Tania. And for those people who might not be aware of you, just take some time just to share a little bit about yourself.
Oh, kia ora. And I've got to say that I feel the same about you. I'm appreciative of the energy that you give to Real Talk. So I'm Tania, and I have a business called The Coaching Hub, and Real Talk is now my focus and my baby, and where all my time and energy and love and commitment goes to. Yeah.
And when you think about Real Talk, you know, there's some beautiful people who are part of this kaupapa, and you know, honestly, I think the last 3 podcasts with Ariana, you know, with Pania and with the sister Nix are all connected through this kaupapa. And so, you know, want to talk a little bit about that. You know, we'll just go straight off the bat and just talk about Real Talk and what it means to you.
Cool. So Real Talk, how did it begin? So, you know, we all have a story, and I have always, since I can remember, wanted to go back into schools and reach out to those ones that are struggling, that are going through traumatic experiences, and just really let them know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And you know, the power of manifestation. So I had these visions. I saw myself standing on the stage. I was handing out prizes. Like, I actually saw this happening in my mind's eye. And it wasn't till like years later, like 15 years later, and my sister was studying social work, and she asked me to come into Te Rōpua Whina and talk to the young mums group there. So I went in, and you know, I'm blonde and I'm white, and I'm walking into this room, and they all just looking at me like, oh yeah, who's this? You know, no eye contact, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be hard. And I realized that they seen me as the lady from SIFS, or the lady at WINS that declines their application. So yeah, so it was a pretty icy beginning, but then as soon as I stood up and started speaking Māori and sharing my story, then just the aroha in the room, the tears, there was not a dry eye, the questions, and so much respect. And I saw the power that day of what it was of telling your story. And they were all like, I want to tell my story too, and can you listen to me? And just the beauty of it, you know, allowing people to be themselves and not living behind who they think they should be. Yeah.
And that's cool, you know, particularly, you know, having that icy start. But did you find comfort in, once you got going and telling your story, what did you feel in that moment? Was it just you showing up? Was it you just being real for you? Or what enabled you to feel comfortable in that space?
Well, you know, I was 42 years old at that time, and I had never ever told my story. And so for 42 years I had lived a life, and I ran away from home when I was 15, and I moved to Auckland, and I lived a life of somebody that I created. Like, I wanted to live a life where people didn't know my background and didn't judge me, so I created this persona. And And I was embarrassed about where I came from, and I didn't want people to know where I came from. And so there was this burning desire to get this story out of me. And after all that time, I was like, okay, she's asked me to do a thing. I'm going to go do the thing. And it wasn't till that moment that I went, holy shit, the power in this. And being vulnerable, the release that I felt telling my story. Like, it was healing for me, but it was also beautiful to watch, as I said there, the way that we connected. You know, just the awhi, the aroha, the connectedness of us in that room. And so from there, I started doing these speaking circuits, and I went on stage and I was, telling my story. And when you tell your story, like the story that I tell on stage, if anyone's listened to it, is there are certain elements that I allow myself to share, and my story is very deep. And I think with the Real Talk, how many events we've had recently, it's also opened my eyes to some of the really, really traumatic stuff that I don't share. And that has been a battle for me, because I've never had counselling, I've never had help. I've just got this remarkable ability to switch a switch off, to say that was my life in the past, and that can stay in the past, and I can comfortably stand on that stage, as you know, and talk about my past, because it's like we're watching a movie. But what it has brought up is my need to get some help for that deeper stuff that has been locked down in there that I won't allow myself to acknowledge. And
I think that's just want to acknowledge you for bringing that up. And as you said, when you start to speak and you share your story on stage and you see it as a movie, actually we've lived many different lives up until this point. When you think about moment to moment, year to year, it's sort of like we're reshaping our lives ultimately. And when you can see it in that way, it is a journey, right? It is a journey. And every time that I sort of get the opportunity to share, and as you know, mine are just not the same. Every single time they change all the time. But it's such a release, being able to share what is true for you in that moment. And with an hour, you can't necessarily share everything, right? Or whether it's 20 minutes or however long, you can't share everything. So it's about identifying the capacity of what can you share. And I think a tōna wā, as your journey grows and develops and you get that tautoko and support that you need to go into those valleys, I'm sure, you're going to be able to shine that light. And one of the key messages that come out for me when I do hear you speak is you talk about a lighthouse. And do you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah, so the lighthouse, I live and breathe by that, because in your darkest days, when, times get really dark, in my life anyway, there have been people that have come along when you least expect it and sort of reach down and lend a hand and pull you up. And a couple of years ago, like I, had my kids, and my mindset just went back, and I started thinking about all the people that helped me along the way. And I made this mission to go and say thank you, to actually say thank you to these people who I might not have seen for 15 years, and they might have been in another city, and just look them in the eye and say thank you. I don't think you realised how much you helped me in that situation, whether it be personal or business related. And I reckon that's the beauty of life. When you realise it's not about you and what you can achieve, and more so about what you can help others achieve, there's just so much beauty in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love how you say that. And as you were sort of speaking, I just started to get all these flashes of people in my life that just gave me the opportunity just to further develop and grow. And it is crazy, right, how one person can really change the course of your life. And we're speaking about it just off camera, how different stages of our lives, different people come to either help us ascend, to help us sort of, I guess, explore ourselves further. Because I know certainly for me anyway, there's this feeling of knowing within myself. But then I get to connect with people, people like you and others that give me that sense of reassurance, or sometimes just that kick up the ass and be like, get your shit sorted.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, man, it's just such a big breakthrough with that. And so that's why Heart Out resonated with you when you said, the lighthouse, and it's such a beautiful concept. And I'm sure you're a lighthouse for many people as well.
Well, I like to be, absolutely, but I also like to make people aware of the power that they have to be the lighthouse for others. Just a smile on your face saying hi to somebody, like, you don't realize how that simple gesture can change somebody's day, change their life.
And I love that. And it brings me to this whakaaro, and I shared a post last night, and it was just around, when you're having a shitty day, just acknowledge it, allow yourself to feel that. And, I remember once upon a time, I was all about positivity and good vibes only, and, that almost gives the sense of positive, toxic positivity, I think is the term. Do you have any thoughts around that, around, creating this persona or this idea that everything is all sunshine and rainbows, and neglecting the bad? Do you have any whakaaro around that?
And you know what made me change my mindset in that area is because when you are a parent, which you're about to be, and you look at yourself and you think, okay, I have some shitty days. We all have shitty days, and I'm just like you. I like to be positive and positive toxicity or whatever it is. But my daughter, and you try and make your kids conform to the standard that you expect them to behave at or achieve at. And I look at my daughter and I think, hang on, I allow myself to have bad days. We need to allow people to have bad days and not be performing every second, every minute, every hour. We're allowed to have those days. Allow ourselves the space. And if you want to Netflix and chill and lie on the couch, do it.
Yeah.
And I think my problem was, because I came from the background that I came from and I worked my ass off to get to where I was, I would get successful, I would make a lot of money, and nothing was ever enough. And it was like, okay, what more can I get? What more can I get? What more can I get? Maybe if I get that, I'll be happy. Never ever was I happy chasing that dream. It was to the detriment of my mental health and my family. And now I realize that there's more to life. It's about the connections that you make. It's about being happy, being free, having the ability to spend time with your whānau and do things that make you happy. And if that means lying on the couch and allowing yourself to do that without the guilt, then that's what it is. And
wow. And it took you to reach rock bottom to have that realization?
Yeah. Because for me, it's like you're capable. It was almost like I know what I'm capable of, and I'm always expecting myself to go. And so if I rest, it's like you could be doing way more productive things. You could be doing this, that, and the other. It was almost like I put a value on my time, and lying on the couch was not valuable adding to. Yeah,
wow.
But now I know you need to rest. You need to recover. How can you fill other people's cups if you're not filling your own, Yeah.
That is so powerful, and it really is. It's so true. And I love that simple analogy of ensuring that your cup is full.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to attain happiness or joy, or even experiencing love if you don't have a full cup.
That's right.
And I think when your cup is empty, that's all you're in search for. It's just to feel that little bit of happiness. But sometimes lying on the couch is actually filling your cup up. You know what I mean? So it is just about, I think it's just finding that truth within you, you know, and we have to experience things. We have to push ourselves to the edges and realize, like, hey, maybe I don't need to push in this direction. Maybe I just need to pull it back in this area. And I think that's what life is. It's just an exploration. It's just testing out these edges until we find, you know, what our truth is. And do you feel you've arrived at a point of, I guess, understanding what your purpose may be at this point in time?
You know, and this is freaky because I was just thinking about this, and for years, you know, chasing the dream in the corporate world, because I thought that was the only way that you can be successful and make a lot of money and you know, retire. And then I started my business, and I was making a lot of money, and my first 6 figures came after 7 months of being in business, and I was making 10K a month, then 20K a month, then 30K a month, and then 40K a month, and I was like, why am I not happy? You know, I've got all this money, but I was empty, and I was like, what is this dream? I knew there was something waiting for me, something big, something impactful, but I didn't know what it was. And now that it's happened, now that Real Talk's here, I'm like, that's what it is. And I think once you release yourself from that expectation and just allow the universe to guide you with just the power of manifestation, and having the right intentions, you will be rewarded abundantly, however that looks like. And
it might not necessarily be in that sort of monetary sense, but it's that sense of fulfillment.
Fulfillment, yes.
And I love those two words that you shared, manifestation and intention. And when I think about manifestation, it just speaks to just how powerful we are, just as humans. We're able to think, we're able to imagine, we're able to really create a picture and allow ourselves to be guided towards that. And that's where I feel a lot of misconnection is, or disconnection is people have a lot of dreams, but they don't apply the intention. And I feel the intention is probably one of the key components of that, is that if your intention is true to what you want to manifest, you just have to trust in that process, and I think the actions or the things that you need to do will be placed in front of you. And I feel it's about minimizing that time between thinking it, feeling it, and taking that action. You know, if you can take action a lot faster than what you have been in the past, I suppose, you know, things will start to build. That momentum will build. And
I think that's a good point, because it's all good to have these thoughts, but if you don't take action, then they're not going to eventuate. But sometimes we need a push in the right direction, a kick up the ass, as you said, you know, and having a coach or a mentor or a support person, someone that's been there before, aligning yourself or surrounding yourself with people that have been there and can see where it is that you want to go, so that you can be guided in that direction. Otherwise, I think we're limited by our own limiting beliefs, you know, the stories that we tell ourselves. And that's another thing that I do to myself. You know, I have these, I'm aware now of the thoughts that come up for me, and I'm like, cool story, bro. Like, yeah, laters.
You don't attach yourself to it, eh? Yeah, it's crazy, eh, how we do have all of these thoughts just circulating in our minds. And I think it's just about really being able to filter that noise and trying to align yourself with the thoughts that actually represent who you really are. Because I think a lot of the stories and the scenarios are all assumptions. We create them. And I think we slip up when we start to believe them. We believe in these stories that we're telling ourselves that is ultimately so against who we really are. You know, and I think that's where a lot of the disconnection could be happening. So these are just some thoughts, though. They may be true, but other people might see it differently. And, you know, I think it's just as we sort of communicate and we share each other's stories and we bounce in these thoughts, I think It's just beautiful just to be able to have this interaction with you, sis.
I love it too. Like you're just on, like you, just your questioning and your ability to see through, like, and it's almost like you're looking into my soul. I love it. It's like, I just feel so comfortable with you. It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's, just having these real raw and real talks, I suppose, and talk about that. How did that name actually come about? Because as you know, naming a business is quite difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
So talk about that whole process.
So, Morn, you've talked with Mahi Connection. So, and I've got to thank my friend, because I was going around, I think you were there when I said I was doing this international circuit and raising money for buying sewing machines in Zimbabwe. And I'm sitting in the hairdressing chair and she's like, "What are you doing, man? Like, let's do one and let's do it really cool." And so from that moment, the light bulb went off and the wheels were in motion. And so it was actually Morn that came up with the Real Talk name. And when I went to go and buy the website domain and all that kind of stuff, the Real Talk was already taken, so we just changed it to Real Talk NZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Morn that came up with the Real Talk.
And check her out, eh? She's already, creating Mahi Connection. She's a super mama, she's opening up a second salon and all of these different things. So it's just about, I think that's another awesome thing is like, it's important to be around the right people, isn't it? People who appreciate your dreams, people who back your dreams, people who add different ingredients to your dreams. And I think if we don't have those people around us, it's very, it makes it a lot harder to actually start something. And look at that, just from one conversation, things have just grown. And how much events have you had up until this point?
So we've had six. We've done 6 events, and it's not even been a year yet. So 1st of August was our first event in Wellington, and at that time Morn was hapu with baby number 5, I think, 5. And that woman, like, the most incredible entrepreneurial brain, like just ideas, and she's got so much on the go. And at that time it was like she needed to focus on the whānau and the other business ideas that she had, and I just kept going with the Real Talk. And I think I changed the vision of it in terms of the way that we reach out to rangatahi, because that was my dream. That was my get on that stage and do what you can to help the rangatahi get in there, so.
And very fortunate to be the first Tani who was on the circuit this year, and it's been incredible, even just for myself. And when I'm in these spaces and surrounded by amazing wahine, mana wahine, and even just being able to look up and I'm on the stage and I'm speaking and I look out and there's just so much wahine and there is very few Tani, right? And I'm just so proud of each of those Tani who choose to come into these spaces, and pretty much to everyone, because these events are held on a weekend. They're held on a Saturday night, and people are choosing, to participate in these sort of things. And the energy that is just in that room is just incredible. So, what started in the salon to see where it is now, it's just building so much great momentum for where it can be in the future. Yeah,
and look at Nelson. I didn't even realise it was 11 o'clock. That show went on till 10:45, and it was supposed to finish at 9:30. But it was just the mauri, the wairu in the room was just beautiful, eh? Like, it was just unbelievably one of the best moments of my life, receiving my taonga from Timothy that night. Like, just the whole energy just was beautiful. Yeah, big shout out to Timothy, taonga by Timothy, who does these taonga. He gifted each of the speakers a taonga that night down in Nelson, and each of our taonga has a name and also has a story. And so I just want to do a special shout out to Timothy and his whānau for the beautiful taonga. And a question that keeps coming up for me as we're talking, Tania, is one of the main I guess
components or factors that pretty much limit people or prevent people from taking action or understanding their truth is fear, right? I feel fear is such a big crippler for a lot of us, right? And certainly in my journey, you know, when I've wanted to do something, I've had fear, whether it's fear of judgment, fear of failing, fear of not being good enough, right? Whatever it may be. And just want to sort of get your thoughts on it, right? You've had a big journey. You've actually experienced a lot of fear, you know, whether it's in your upbringing or being in these corporate environments. And so what is your whakaaro when it comes to fear?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think when you suffer a traumatic childhood, like nothing really, you're not afraid of a lot because you've been through so much shit, you've witnessed so much shit that nothing can be as bad as what you've experienced. So I was kind of bulletproof in terms of situations. I was fearful, like you said, of being judged, and that's probably what led me to not talk about my past. And yeah, fear, it can cripple you, it can hold you back. Again, it's back to those stories. Are you telling yourself those stories? Where are they coming from? Are you holding yourself back because of these stories that you're holding on to? Are you living the stories because that's what you have conjured up in your head? Is it true? Is it true? Yeah.
I think that's the question, eh? Like, is it true? We must have that sense of awareness and find the moment just to pause and be, where is this coming from? And if you keep going down that track and then just asking again how you said, is this true? And if you can say no, then it's easier to just let that go. But I think it's important to acknowledge that fear. I think it's important to be honest with our fears, right? And I shared with my te ara hau whānau the other night that, you know, one of my fears is, you know, getting to this, I suppose, to the mountaintop of where I feel I can go in terms of success, in terms of wherever I see my life. And I get to that point, and then I realize that this right now is the best part, right? And that's a fear, is that, you know, working so hard to get there, and then having that moment and be like, fuck, I missed the best part.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I feel like I tried to tap into gratitude and work on being extremely present, it still feels as though that sits with me. And I had to go deep with that, you know. I had to go, what am I fearful of? And because I needed to be honest with myself, I sieved through the generic ones, like fear of judgment, fear of failing, and I just went down and down and down, and that's where it got to for me. And what I went through in that is, instead of being fearful of it, how can I learn from it right now? How can I just be a bit more appreciative of the journey, even more so than what I am, so that when I get to that point, at least I know that the journey has been well lived up until that point. And that's why I think fear is good in a sense. It's good to use it as sort of like a soundboard, as a way to dance through, you know, making these decisions.
It's a reality check.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there something that you feel you're fearful in this at this point in time in your journey?
Well, I can honestly say now that I've done a lot of work on, you know, my beliefs and the stories that I tell myself, and I've just released a whole lot of expectations from myself. And I think once you become aware, and like I said before, once you realize that it's not about you, when you let go of that ego and know that it's about the impact that you can make on the world and the intentions that you have, you just level up to this beautiful new space that is indescribable. You know, and I don't think you can teach that. you have to be open and allow yourself to live, you said it before, who you truly are, not living for who you think others want you to be. And once you make that pivotal change in your mind, you release yourself from all of that.
Isn't it crazy how it's just one moment and one decision that really just makes everything click, right? And you wonder, all of these years or all of this time that we've been far away from this understanding, but it really just does take a moment, right? And sometimes it's hard to comprehend the simplicity of it, because people who might be listening to this, who might not really be in that space, but desire to be, from where you currently are to seeing this new version of yourself, someone who has released, someone who has healed, just seems so far away. And when we say it's just a switch in mind, right, it is that simple, but also having compassion for people who are in these spaces. And so, you being a coach and you supporting people, what is a way to help people understand that in a way where it's not as simple as we said it? What could be a way to help them navigate that space of change for them?
I think, you're young. It's taken me a long time to get to this place, and I think all those years in between that I could have been living this life, but it's taken me until now to come to that realization. I think for me, I didn't know that existed. I actually didn't know that existed. When you are not connected in that space or not being exposed to that, if you would have told me 10 years ago about this, I would have been like, I had no realization of the ability to live in that world. And I think I was limiting myself because I didn't believe. I didn't believe that it was possible. So I think having exposure, and Real Talk is an awesome opportunity for people to be exposed. That meditation that you did on the stage that night in Nelson, some people in the audience have never ever experienced that. So it's providing an opportunity for people to see what is possible, and that's what Real Talk is all about, right? Like so many rangatahi idolize the social media influencers on that stage, and it's not until they hear your journey, they hear your story, that they actually go, wow, they were just like me. They weren't born successful and as cool as they are now. There's a journey, you know, and until they hear that, until they can resonate with your kōrero, with you on that stage and in that audience, that's the impact that you can have. And that's when you start lighting that fire. I think that's
a very, very important part is if you don't see it for yourself, then you don't know what it is that you're switching in terms of your mind, because I think there is a lot of people, right? And I even have moments for myself when I think I only know what I know, right? And people only know what they know. It's not until we expose ourselves to more, whether it's, for me, reading a book or listening to a podcast or listening to someone speak, that now I have a different knowing. And it's just about exploring that a little bit more, and it's just about broadening that awareness. I feel awareness is key. I really do. And, having these beautiful spaces and having all of these resources now, for people who do want to make that change, I think it's easier now more than ever to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And when you say awareness, I think it goes even deeper. It's exposure. Because if they haven't seen that, if they're living a cycle of trauma and they haven't had the exposure, how can they be aware?
I really like that. And so what's next for Real Talk?
Wow, so we're just working on grinding, hustling, trying to get the pūtea together so that we can continue this kaupapa. And it's a beautiful thing getting my whānau involved and supporting me on the journey. And you know, my sister's like, Gizzy, sis, we got to do Gizzy and get Ruatoria in there. And so that's going to be her project when we raise the pūtea to do that. Like, we're just thinking about all the venues that we can go to, or the cities that we can go to where we can have the most impact, where we can take people like you too, that you would never possibly go, you know, and give them that exposure that they need to be aware, like we just talked about. Planting those seeds.
And that's it. And I think your family, just in general, is just so involved, right? You know, you got all your sisters just, you know, part of this journey, and you have all had the same upbringing. And, you know, you've touched on your background, you know, briefly, but you know, you've shared in Real Talk that it was very much like, you know, the Once We Warriors kind of background. And, you know, to see where you guys are at now, just as a family, you know, you're all just doing it. You know, you got sisters who own salons, you know, your daughter is part of that as well. You got some who are within, you know, all of these other beautiful spaces. And when you think about that, you know, how do you sort of like, even like when you see that, are you just so proud and happy because you guys know what you have been through? And just to see you all in the same space, like, what is that like for you as the older sister? Well,
for me, so I ran away from home when I was 15, as I said, and I hold a lot of guilt from abandoning them. So I ran away to give myself the freedom. And although I was free, the guilt that kept me chained to, you know, really feeling for what I left behind. And, you know, now I'm in a position where, and I've always been in a position where I'll support my sisters and I will die for them, but to give them a space that we can collectively leave a legacy for our tamariki, for my mokopuna, you know, I'm a nanny. It just feels so beautiful to be able to give back, and it's filling that void that I had for so many years. And they're all entrepreneurial and successful in their own right, but just having me light that path as light as I can for them to have an easier life and for their kids to have an easier life, that just makes me so happy and keeps me driven to do what I do.
Is a dream of yours to have you all speak on that stage one time?
Yeah, well, I've talked to them about, you know, we can do it. And even my daughter, she's got a massive story, like, and even, you know, being a daughter of mine and what effect that had on her. And I would love to see them on that stage eventually, but it's got to be the right timing, right? And when I say that, I think about the rangatahi that apply to speak on stage too. Like, we get applications for rangatahi, and it's up to me to make sure that I'm providing a safe space for them, to provide that tautoko, that to make sure that they've got whānau support and friends and family around to support them, because you can't just, if you're not ready to tell your story and you just tell it for the wrong intentions, you could cause a lot of damage, you know? And so that's why it's important for whoever, my sisters, like when they're ready, you know, when the timing is right and they're ready to stand on that stage, the stage will be there for them.
And it was great to have, you know, rangatahi, you know, speak at these events, you know, Grace, you know, Hunter, powerful speakers, man. I was blown away from those two, you know, young wahine and their ability to share and be so vulnerable and open. And the thing that I would think about when I'm in those spaces is everyone has a story, eh?
That's right.
Every single person has a story, right? Whether you've come from a rough background or whether you've come from a nice, it doesn't necessarily matter. I think every story has a space to be shared. And I think it's just about how do we continue to create those spaces that enable people to not only share their story, but to recognize their story in someone else's. And that's what I think the powerful thing is when you do share your story, is there's so many similarities, you know, that people have, and it's about being relatable, and it's about normalizing, you know, some of those hardships. And I think when you get to a point in, I suppose, the journey of going through enough suffering, and you start to do the work and you pick up these tools and strategies, I think that there's the breakthrough, is equipping yourself with the necessary things so that you may never repeat the same things. And what are some of the tools that you keep to your heart? The things that when you're feeling a particular way, or, to keep Tania aligned with her truth, what are some of the tools and strategies that you have?
Well, I think, for me, honesty and integrity are massive. And you know my whānau, it's all about kaitiakitanga, manakitanga. We would give whatever we had to make sure that you were comfortable. And so for me, it's making sure that I'm allowing myself that space. Like, there's a maunga in Porirua, it's maunga rangituhi, and Grace, our friend Grace, she named her baby's middle name is Rangituhi Maunga.
Good.
Well, not maunga, but Rangituhi. And so for me, that's the ability for me to connect with the earth. It's for me to connect with my thoughts. And the problem with, like I said before, I hold myself with such high expectations, and I've got to be on all the time. So what I was doing is I was saying to myself, okay, you've got an hour, you're going to walk up the maunga, but as you walk up the maunga, you need to listen to a podcast that is going to add value to your business. You need to watch. I was always thinking, okay, make the most of this hour, be productive. And then I started hating what I was doing. And then I made the switch, and I was like, no, this is going to be my me time. So I cranked up the gangster rap, and boom, and I was doing it every day, and just allowing myself that time to just enjoy the music and enjoy the walk, and not put expectations of myself to achieve anything in that time, but connecting with myself. So
wow, yeah. It seems as though expectation has been like something that you have just wrestled with throughout your journey, And do you want to speak just a little bit about that, some of the major challenges, some of the roadblocks, and then, what has your relationship been with expectations? Like, where has that come from?
Yeah, the expectations is, I think, it was always, I want to make sure that I was a young mum. I was 16 when I got pregnant with my first daughter, and the expectation was to provide her with a better life than what I had. And so everything that I did needed to be calculated, needed to add value to our life. And so, like, I was on that wheel of just whatever it takes, however long it takes, as hard as you work, just keep going, because it's adding value to what I saw was value. When I look back now, I feel sorry for that period of time where I was on that rat race trying to add value, but what I lost was the greatest value of all, and that was the time with my daughter, the quality time. And to me, I ask myself that, and I tell my clients that you either pay with money or you pay with time. So what is more valuable for you?
And that's incredible. And I'm so I love how you sort of like share that. And the image that I have in my mind at the moment is just the relationship that you have with your daughter now, and it's very much close, and very much like you're the older sister almost. You fellas got that good vibe going on, and what that speaks to is like, although you say you had this expectation on you and you lost a lot of time, it has played out in the long run, where you'll probably just realize that, and now giving so much more time to your family. And is that the other side of what you've gone through with expectation and time and value?
Yeah, I mean, I still struggle. I've still struggled with expectations of myself, and I'm working on that constantly. But Cheyenne, my daughter, it's like I count my blessings every day that I have somebody like her in my life. And she has been, from the moment she was born, just the most beautiful, caring young lady. Never ever have I ever had problems with her. And she is like my best friend. And you have this unconditional love. Oh my God, there's nothing better on this earth than having unconditional love. And I'm so lucky because I've got 5 sisters who are my best friends, that we all love each other unconditionally. And just
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that, and I can hear it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you do need to hear this say, but I think, like, you're enough, sis.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're more than enough. You're a fucking powerhouse, right? The amount of value that you're already giving, I think it's just a testimony to how big your heart is, that you do want to give. And, sometimes we just need to hear that. Sometimes we just need to hear, like, hey, you're enough. You're doing good, and because sometimes the people outside can see who we really are. Yeah. They can see the light. And it's so unfortunate that we dim our light, right? That we suffer inside trying to please ourselves ultimately. And I think it's just knowing really deep down that we are enough in all that we do. And it's just about trusting in that process. And I'm sure, as you alluded to at the start, that, there are things that you need to work on in terms of opening up, parts of you that you haven't in a long time. And I think through that journey there, there's going to be so much beautiful things to come of it. And there's one good thing that comes to mind, and it says, when you break down, you break through. And honestly, when you sort of like come through that other side, sis, it's going to be absolutely like, watch out.
Well, you make me excited as you say it, but then I'm like, holy fuck.
No, you know what it means though, eh? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just amazing, at this stage of your life, and still so giving, and still so willing to learn and grow and develop. It's just so inspirational for me. And, when you think about women in general, and you think about, with Hinepania going through what she's going through, of her body changing, and, she has to push baby out. She has to deal with all of these other things. And, me as a Tania, I'm just like so blown away by just the strength, right? The compassion, the tenderness that, that I'm witnessing my wife go through. And, when you think about wahine and you think about this strength, we think about, all of the beauty, what comes to mind for you?
As you say that, I think about that again, the word expectation. And I think we need to release ourselves from that expectation of, when we have a baby, we lose the person that we were, right? And we become a mother. We become the protector of something, the gift from above, that replaces everything else in your life. And you would do anything, you would die for this gift, this taonga. And I think, all too often we continue to think that we can push and hold on to everything that we were, as well as making space for this beautiful new taonga that is now the light of our life. And the expectations of us to continue doing that, to hold down the household, we lose our identity. We need to let go of who we were before. We have to, because we can't do that anymore. And I think when we've given birth, we go into the state of, who am I now?
Right.
Who am I? And we lose ourselves. If we haven't got the support or the systems, the whānau support around us, we actually lose ourselves. And I found I was myself in that situation, because I was trying to live that person, that expectation. I'm like, okay, pop the kids out and go back and do this. You can't do that anymore. So you have to release yourself from the expectation of doing that old life as well as doing this life, and really finding the balance.
Yeah, that's so powerful, right? And that's one of the realizations that I've been having, and it's been getting a lot clearer that, man, life's legit never ever going to be the same again, with us having baby. And I'm seeing that for me, but then understanding that for Hine Pania, and like she has a more, she's going through it, on a more intense level, obviously. And so I'm really interested to see how the shift happens for us. And I think that's powerful advice there around knowing that it's just about letting go of just how things were, and not expecting that things are going to be the same. And it's just about readjusting, rebuilding, and recreating these versions of ourselves that are now parents, right? And, I think I'm just so blown away by Wahine Ray. Like I've heard other fathers say this about how they have just so much more appreciation, for their woman. And for me, for sure, it's just like, whoa, this is like incredible to go through this.
But remember, you created that life too.
Yeah. So Tania, it's been an awesome chat, man. We've just been going at it, and it's just, time has just like flown like that. But if there was one final message that you might want to share, whether it's a rangatahi that's listening, or might even have, a message to your old self, what would that last message be?
Well, I always say it doesn't matter where you come from, it's about where you choose to go. And I'm a strong believer in that. You get to choose. You can't choose your friends. You can choose your friends. You can't choose your whānau. You can't change what's happened to you in the past. But if you want to choose your future, you can. You have the ability to live the life that you want to create.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tania. And to everyone that has listened, thank you so much for tuning in. Keep an eye out for Real Talk, because there is going to be some more kaupapa coming up in the near future. And also follow Tania. She's got a coaching hub. She helps people become the lighthouse. But also, if you have found any impact from this, make sure to get in touch with her and let her know. Tēnā koutou, and Tania, thank you so much.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe.
Beautiful.